Hello everyone, welcome to the channel Pharma Focus, and I'm back with another video which is part 2 of the basic terminology as per GVP Module 6 IMA, and in this we will be covering the terminologies that were left. So let's start with it. So the first one here is the medical confirmation. So as per the GVP module, there is a mention of the ICSR being medically confirmed in this, and we can obviously receive the reports or any kind of medical documents from a consumer that supports a suspected side effect, but we do need a healthcare professional to make it verified and to make it medically confirmed. So, a report can also come from a medically qualified patient or a friend, family member, or a caregiver. So, it depends on the various scenarios whether we are going to treat it as a medically confirmed report or not. So, for example, if we have a consumer who first reports a suspected side effect and it is later confirmed by a healthcare professional, then that kind of ICSR is supposed to be treated as a medically confirmed one. So the case that can be updated at various levels, at the case level, at the reaction levels, and for any kind of suspected reactions that get confirmed. So we have a term in PV which clearly defines this, that if a case is being treated as medically confirmed or a non-medically confirmed. So these terms are the upgrading of a case and the downgrading of a case. So let's suppose for upgrading a case is initially reported by a consumer, like a patient, and it is treated as a non medically confirmed report at first. But if on later stages it is confirmed by a healthcare professional like a doctor, a pharmacist, or a nurse, or etc., as per laws, with a provided medical confirmation, then the case is upgraded as medically confirmed. So let's take an example here. For example, we have a patient who reports dizziness after taking drug A, and now later the doctor reviews the case and states that dizziness is linked to taking of that drug. So, in such a scenario, a case has to be upgraded and it will be a medically confirmed case. Similarly, we have a second point where there is a downgrading of a case. Sometimes the information that we have for a case, it initially seems to be medically confirmed, but later it turns out that it is not meeting the criteria. So in such cases, the case becomes downgraded and it is non-medically confirmed. So in general terms, medical confirmation means a healthcare professional has reviewed the case and a medical evidence is there to support the event. Not and, uh, it's or. So HCP is involved in this, the medical confirmation. And these updates can be on the levels of case and reaction. So next part we have is the seriousness of the case. When an adverse reaction is treated as a serious, so this can be any harmful medical event that at any dose is causing one of these. Either it is leading to the death of the patient, it is life-threatening, it requires hospital administration, admission, or extend an existing hospital stay, or it causes lasting or significant disability or incapacity, or leads to a birth defect or congenital anomaly. So the seriousness must be judged at the time the reaction occurs. For example, the life-threatening means the patient was actually at the risk of dying when the reaction happened, not just that the reaction could have been fatal if it had become more severe. So when the reaction occurs, we need to assess the seriousness at that particular time. So in simpler terms, we know here what death means, what life-threatening means. If we focus on the third point that requires admission or extends an existing hospital stay, then it refers to if a person exceeds 24 hours of hospitalization, then this event is meant to be considered as a serious event, and there is prolongation of existing hospitalization. For suppose a patient is already hospitalized and there is an extension of hospital stay, then in those cases the event is considered as serious. The fourth one is causing lasting or significant disability or incapacity, which refers to, for example, a patient is suffering from some kind of inability, maybe an inability to move your arm, and this lasts for a long time. It is long lasting and it continues even though the person is out of danger or is out of hospital. So this is considered as a serious thing. And the last one, it leads to the birth defect. So anything that is a defect in a person at the time of the birth. So these are the factors that are used to determine the seriousness. So the next part here is about the IME list. Now IMEs are the important medical events and they should also be considered serious. So this is a list which is prepared by Vigilance Expert Working Group and it is in accordance with the MEDRA. So this list helps with classifying suspected adverse reactions, analyzing aggregated safety data, and assessing the ICSRs in daily PV work. So there's a particular list, the IME list. In some scenarios, this list is meant to be treated as serious, and in some scenarios there are some side effects which we have to look upon into the IME list to check if they are to be marked as serious or not. And this one is about the again what I told you before, that the seriousness, it has to be documented at case level or at adverse reaction level, and depending on what kind of format we are using for electronic submission. So this one that we have here is the ICSR, which is the Individual Case Safety Report. Most of you are already aware, but for a report to be qualified as an ICSR, there are at least 4 valid factors that need to be there in that scenario. So these are the identifiable reporter, the identifiable patient, a suspected adverse reaction, and a suspected medicinal product. So I'm trying to make you understand these with some scenarios. Let's suppose we take scenario 1 where a physician is there who reports that 45-year-old male developed severe rash after taking amoxicillin. So here we need to check for the criteria if it qualifies to be an ICSR or not. So looking at the scenario, let's recall the information. We have a patient who is identifiable because we have the sex of the patient, which is the male, We have the age of the patient, which is 45-year-old, so that makes the patient identifiable. Secondly, we have a reporter who is a physician, so there is an identifiable HCP. We do have a suspect drug, which is amoxicillin, and after taking amoxicillin, the patient developed severe rash. So, severe rash is the adverse event. So, we do have these four criteria, and therefore, this qualifies to be a valid ICSR. Let's take another example where, let's say, a consumer calls the company and says that my mother had breathing difficulty after starting drug X. So, here, what we have in line is a patient who is the mother of the caller, as it is identifiable through the relationship and the line. So, we have an identifiable patient, mother. We have a reporter who called the company, the consumer, and we do have a suspect drug which was stated as drug X. And if we look for the adverse event, we have it as breathing difficulty. So therefore, this also qualifies for a valid ICSR. Now let's take another scenario where we have a report which says that some patients in the hospital had fever after using drug Y, but no patient details or reporter identity are given. Now, what we do have here is drug Y, which is the suspected medicinal product. We do not have the name of the patient. Patient is not identifiable through any of the factors. No age, no sex, or no link is provided. And we do have the adverse event, which is the fever. But since we don't have the identifiable patient, so we cannot say that this is a valid ICSR. And let's take another example. So there are many cases. There happens a social media screening to look for any kind of adverse events that are posted online by any of the patients who's using the company's product. So let's take a scenario related to that. For example, a social media post which states that the drug nearly killed me. So we do have the reporter, but like we can get it from the social media post, but we are not sure of if we can conduct a follow-up for the same. For more information, maybe we don't even know what drug nearly killed him, and there's no identifiable or a proper suspected adverse reaction here. So this is going to qualify as an invalid ICSR. So now let's talk about null flavors. So what are the null flavors? These are the set of codes that explain why a valid value is missing in an ICSR, and they're available in ICH E2B R3 format but not in ICH E2B R2 format. So they apply in situations such as when a value is applicable but not known. For example, patient's age is unknown, so we code UNK or unknown, or when the information exists but cannot be shared for privacy, security, or any kind of legal reasons. For example, the date of birth restricted by the data protection laws, then we code it as masked, that is MSK. And ICH E2B R3 adopts null flavor codes from HL7 messaging standard to classify different cases of missing data. So first point what we have here is the HL7 messaging standard. So what this is, so this is the health level 7 messaging standard, which is a set of international standards for the transfer of any kind of clinical administrative data between the healthcare information systems. We do have two highlighted things over here, which is ICH E2B R2 and ICH E2B R3. So both of them are the international electronic standards which are used for the exchange of ICSRs in PV, and they are the part of ICH E2B guideline. So there was a ICH E2B R2 standard which was used earlier, and it was used widely before 2016, and it has more limited data fields as compared to R3. But we have ICH E2B R3, which is the latest version, and with this latest version, it improved the quality of data, the consistency, and the international harmonization. And it supports a detailed and structured data fields. And also, it is aligned with HL7 messaging standards, which I mentioned about earlier. So it makes ICSRs easier to exchange, to validate, and to analyze across the countries and regulatory systems. So in short, E2B R2 was the older format, and it has fewer data elements, and it was less structured. But E2B R3 is an updated format. It has much rich data fields. It is harmonized globally, and it supports advanced coding like null flavors. So the null flavors are the unknown, the masked. Okay, so that comes to the end of the terminologies. So we are going to discuss few questions here. So the first question is, which of the following best defines the medical confirmation in context of an ICSR? So let's take a pause and recall what we learned. So as per this, the answer of the question is confirming that the reported adverse event is medically plausible. Next question is, which of the following is not considered as a seriousness criteria for an adverse event? So we did look at various criteria, and out of them, the life-threatening event, hospitalization, persistent disability, all three of them qualify for the seriousness criteria, whereas the mild headache lasting a few hours is the answer here. Next up we have is in ICH E2B R3, what does a null flavor code represent? So this is something we just recently discussed. So the answer for this one is the value is valid but not known or not applicable. Next up we have is, which of the following is a mandatory component of an ICSR? So I believe the answer for this is very easy, which is the suspected drug details. Alright, so we have a scenario based question at the end again, which is a 45-year-old patient was prescribed drug X for hypertension. 2 days after starting the medication, the patient reported severe dizziness and fainting. The healthcare professional submits an ICSR to the Pharmacovigilance department. Some details. Okay, so what we have here is the healthcare professional submits an ICSR to the Pharmacovigilance department. Now, some details like the exact onset time of the symptoms is not available. So from this scenario, we need to identify the following, which is the adverse reaction, the age of the patient, the primary source, and the validity parameters of ICSR. So let's first look at the adverse reaction here. So we do have it clearly stated that the patient reported severe dizziness and fainting. So severe dizziness and fainting are the adverse reactions here. The age of the patient we have here as the 45-year-old patient. The primary source. So now the primary source here is the HCP. Since the HCP submits an ICSR to the Pharmacovigilance department here. And the last question that we have here are the validity parameters of ICSR, where there has to be 4 parameters that I told you at the beginning. So I won't be mentioning these, and I hope you guys like the video. And don't forget to mention the validity parameters of ICSR if you're watching till the end, and write an answer to it in the comment section. I hope you guys will like the video and find it meaningful and helpful. So stay tuned and keep watching, keep learning, and keep growing. Thank you.